Today we're talking with Andrea Morales, who is our Dallas-Fort Worth real estate leader for the Frisco, East Island, East Plano area of Dallas. Andrea, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. Now, we always like to start these with something special about Dallas, North Dallas area. It could be quirky, it could be unique, but it has to be something that you won't find in any other city.
Okay. Well, I don't know. This is kind of interesting. I don't know if we have wine lovers out there, but I was surprised to find out that there's just an abundance of little local wineries here. I really didn't realize Texas was a place that grew grapes and that there
Yeah.
was the opportunity to kind of, if you can't get away to Napa and you want to try something where you create an experience like that and have a beautiful patio, local grown wine from grapes, you can get to something with less than an hour. So it's a really nice outing for like you and your spouse or friends to go and do something and experience something local, support local, but also have like a unique experience. They have music, they have some nice food that's there. And it was a really fun find because I think sometimes you want to get away, but if you have an active family or kids, you just don't have that opportunity to hop on a plane or, and even in our times now with COVID, in Texas we're open. So they have their patios open and you can go and, get out there and socially distance and kind of get a break from everything that's going on in your regular life.
Right. Is it more, because I know in Erie, so that's north of Pittsburgh, we have a ton of wineries, but it's all like the really, really sweet wines. It's like a certain type of wine you see a
So
lot
the
of.
Tempranillo wine, which is like the grapes here, I'm by no means a wine expert.
Me neither, but I
And
just
I,
know what tastes good. I don't know why it
yes,
tastes
yes.
good.
And we have some friends here that are really big connoisseurs of the Texas wine. So they've taken us around. And so, yes, there is different types. There are the varieties that you would find like in any sort of, sweets and non-sweets. And so reds and whites and everything. So, I mean, that's another fun adventure, like going and doing a tastings, trying, a broad variety, and then kind of finding something you might like locally that then you can kind of, sometimes I give them to clients, I give them to friends, because it's always fun to have a story when you give something to someone,
Right,
right?
right.
And
To know
and
where it
say,
came from.
I
And
discovered this and try this out.
right. No, I totally agree. And it's hard, I think sometimes things get so big and mass produced that like you kind of forget about the smaller places, and it's really great to support those that are just trying to kind of establish their own way of making unique
Hmm.
items that are local, because they
Hmm.
need all the support we can get.
Yep.
Did you grow up in Dallas, or where were you from?
No. So funny enough, if you had told me I'd be raising my family in Texas, I probably would never have believed you. Um, I'm from New Mexico. My husband's from California, and we actually started our relationship long distance, but a variety of journeys through careers, specifically mostly with him, have led us all over the country. So we have now settled in Dallas, and that's where we will kind of probably finish it out.
Hmm.
But it's a great place to raise a family, and there's lots of opportunities here for folks, I think. So not a bad place to land.
Right. Now, where do you live now?
So I'm in Allen, which is in Collin
Okay.
County,
Hmm.
so North Dallas. Some people would say I'm in Oklahoma. Not really in Oklahoma, but the border's only like 45 minutes. So
Oh, I
it
didn't know
could
that.
be,
I didn't realize it was that close. And
yes.
Steve Lester, the other agent on the panel, was telling me how the massive amount of people that are moving into your county will eventually outgrow Dallas County by, what did he
Yes.
say, 2050, I think. It's supposed
Yes.
to like
Hmm.
triple
That's what
in
we've
size.
heard. It's the fastest growing county in the area. And so it's where a lot more of the new construction is. And it's definitely where more affordable homes are I mean, you can find homes, let's say under 200,000 in other parts of the Metroplex, but they're going to be much older
Mm,
and definitely not the amenities and that sort of thing.
right. And so in your our effort to support small businesses, what are some favorite places to eat, shop, or go where you live in Allen that you would like to highlight?
So I mentioned I love coffee. I'm kind of a foodie, and I love just trying new things. There's a place here in Allen, Mio Nono. It's a local Italian restaurant, wood fired pizzas, fresh ingredients. They even have music. So my husband and I, pre-COVID, would love to go there and just kind of go have dinner, listen to some live music, um, have just kind of like that little moment of time to catch up.
Hmm.
There's great coffee houses around. I like, again, reminds me of when I was in college and you could go and you could actually sit down and
Yeah.
just enjoy, and you didn't feel like you were getting it and kind of rush to go out.
Right.
There's Cream and Sugar. There's Filtered on the Square in McKinney. So downtown McKinney is another place I love. There's kind of reminds me of like a Hallmark movie where you see a downtown square and all the cute little
Right.
shops.
And the
Uh,
lampposts and the,
Yes, yes. And so, and there's a winery there that you can sit outside and have some wine. There's some beautiful steakhouse. So it's the kind of place that, I think it's local. There's all sorts of things you could do there. If someone was looking for a day out and they were new to the area, I would definitely tell them go there and just spend an afternoon and eat and just kind of pop around the shops and check
right.
it out.
I can't wait to just be able to casually do that again without
I
any
know.
concern, like just to go. I even think coffee shops, like I used to get all my work done at coffee shops when the
Yep.
kids were in school. I would sit there for hours and drink my coffee and get a bunch of stuff done. And now we do all our work from home with
You
kids
get a
at
little
home.
you get a little tired of your same ambiance. Yes, I
Yes,
understand.
yes. Even if I switch rooms, and sometimes I like share a desk with my son while he's doing his virtual schoolwork. I'm like, oh, what I wouldn't give to just have a
I
coffee or
know,
be
and it
somewhere
makes you wonder
quiet.
how much more we're going to appreciate the things that we totally didn't even know we missed.
I think about that all the time, that all the things that I took for granted that I could do and see and enjoy, so, but I'm optimistic. At some point we'll go back to that.
I agree. We have to be.
Yeah, that's there's no other way to think about it. I feel like at this point we've gone through enough. So let's talk about the housing market where you are. What is it like, and is it as bad as everybody else is at this point with low inventory?
Yeah, sorry to report.
Hmm.
Low inventory, great interest rates. I mean, Texas, Dallas specifically has just become such a hub of industry. So, there's parts of the country that when the 2008 recession hit, they never fully recovered, because they just don't have the kind of industry to support the recovery that was needed. Dallas was not one of those areas. So it's just always been very strong. In the time that I've been here living in the Dallas area, from when we've purchased our home has gone up over $100,000 in value. Um,
Wow.
and, we got a great price on the home when we bought it, but homes were just going up over double digit, over 10% every year, right? And so that's kind of unique. I don't think that that's everywhere. And so I think homeowners were becoming accustomed to that. Now it has slowed, so it's not at that same level anymore, but it's still very, very strong. And now with housing starts just not able to keep up with the influx of people, it's created even more of a demand. And then you have COVID, and so you have people that are wanting to move. I mean, I think they said the most likely reason most people are moving after COVID hit was feeling that their homes were too small, not functioning. Just like you mentioned, we're all home officing, homeschooling, whatever, and we're in our homes more than we ever were before. So we're discovering we want to do more in our homes, whether it's the home gym, or I actually want a dedicated office, or I want some more outdoor space, or whatever. So it's really created, we kind of started 2019 or 2020, excuse me, thinking, okay, what will this year bring us? And not really knowing where that would go. And I ended up having my best year yet. People just still wanting to sell their home, people, and of course in a safe way,
Hmm.
people still wanting to go see homes. I have a colleague of mine that had an open house this weekend, and she shared a video on her Facebook page. And I called her this morning and I said, where was this home and what was the price? Because it was ridiculous. There was a line like you'd see to go into a store, probably
Really? For the
30, 40 deep,
wow.
and people waiting to go in because of course they're distancing them and keeping it,
Mm-hmm.
in a controlled way as opposed to just letting everyone in the home.
Right.
I mean, and they'll bring multiple offers. Of course, the price point was great. Anything under 400,000 in this area is considered a very good price point,
Hmm.
especially in Collin County. So you're going to get a lot of interest in that. But that does make it, a very dynamic market over here.
Right. And so for those on the opposite end that are trying to buy, do you have anything that you normally tell your clients to help give them a competitive edge, or any resources or anything to help them stand out when they're presenting an offer, or any tips you have for people that are considering buying, knowing what they're getting into with multiple offers?
So I think, okay, the first thing, and so starting with some assumptions, I would I always try not to assume. So obviously the sooner I try to connect with buyers, the better. So like a forum like you're having is fantastic, because a lot of times a consumer's just not educated on the market, and it does evolve and change. So what I could tell you 3 months ago could be different than when we actually work together and you choose to purchase. So it's always evolving, always moving. And so I think just having someone who's got that pulse and you're connected with them to find out is number one. Um, of course, doing your pre-work. I specifically try not to work, because most of my business is referral. Everyone I'm working with, I make sure that they understand the market. I make sure that we talk about, I call it the chicken and the egg. So which comes first? Are we going to buy first? Are we going to sell first? And here's the pros and cons to both. Obviously, if you can sell, or if you can buy without selling, that's the most advantageous place for you to be as the buyer, but not for, that's not a position everyone can be in. So then we talk about other strategies that I can help them explore, to really understand. And if truly is that they cannot purchase until they sell, then we have to be realistic with the budget, realistic with maybe some geographic areas. You know, if they're wanting to go into a super competitive price point in a super competitive part of the market of the Metroplex, it's going to be very challenging for them. I always try to make sure they're pre-qualified and make sure there's no, like, you know, if you will, things that they just don't know about themselves. I recently had a client who, we sold their home, and unbeknownst to them, they had a situation where they co-signed on something with a member of their family, did not realize that that person had not paid something on time. And so then when we were going to put in, and do their loan, this kind of came up. And so we had to sort of take a pause, address that, and then come back. But they didn't know that.
Right.
So there's just things sometimes, I mean, people don't always know. So I always try to make sure everyone has gotten in front of a lender and they know exactly what they can afford. And there's nothing that's going to surprise us. Because I think the most important thing, whether you're going out with your agent or you pop by an open house on a weekend, because we are having open houses here. I know some markets aren't having those across the country, but that you're ready to go, because you can't, and that doesn't by any means that you're rushing anyone. It just means that people have to understand that there's a dynamicness to this environment. And if they truly think that they know that that's the one, then they probably need to be comfortable with saying, I'm comfortable with having my agent put in the offer.
Right. It's not like a year ago when you could say, I really like the home. We're going to go home and talk about it, and we'll touch base with you like tomorrow.
In a couple of days.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you leave the house and it's like, okay, what do you want to do? Like, do you want to go for it or do you not? Because there's like 4 other people behind you. And
yes.
and like 30 people on the street waiting for the open house.
Really challenging for especially a first-time home buyer, because they just don't know. They just don't know enough about what they may even want or not want. And then of course, I think that that's where there perhaps might even be a little bit of, I would say just concern, or needing that push, that little extra confidence to help them say, this is the right thing. So I think that's where having someone that you've built a relationship with is really important, because I know when I get to the point where I'm working, like I said, we were chatting before we started a little bit, I sometimes am talking to people a year before they even do anything, a year. So in that year, we're building a relationship. And I become someone that if I say, hey, this, you know, you said you wanted these things in a home, and this price point is very competitive. This is a great price for this type of neighborhood. If I'm giving them that nod and they think this is the home that they may like, that sometimes is that extra little nudge of confidence to say, you know what, we're going to go for it.
Right.
We're going to try to put in this offer. And I think sometimes just having someone that they know is looking out for their best interest.
Right.
Is super, super important.
Right. And we touched about this before, and I wanted to kind of go back on it, is how you mentioned talking to people a year out. And I think a good way to know if you're talking with a good agent, if you're that far out, which, you know, most people that use our platform, it's usually a year out, they're starting to think about it. Is that person following up with you, not to see if you're ready, but like, how are you doing? Here's some stuff I found out about this neighborhood. And is there anything I can help you with? And I'm talking like throughout that year,
Yep.
not talking to them and telling an agent, I'm going to think about buying probably in July. And then they just disappear. And then all of a sudden in like April and May, they'll start to email you again because now they know you might be looking to make a move. But it's that person that keeps in touch with you that whole year or that 6 months that's kind of helping you along the way is a good key indicator of someone that's really here to help you and not just make a sale off of you. And I think that's important. And you don't really realize that until you go through the process.
Hmm.
And so, how did you become a real estate agent?
So it's kind of funny. I think I mentioned that my husband and I have been all over the country.
Hmm.
Before I became a realtor. And at least in my experience, I found most people did something else before they became realtors. There's always, I always think it's interesting to ask, like, what did you do before this?
I'm so
Um,
glad you said that because everyone I've interviewed has had the most unique. I'm fascinated by this. And in Pittsburgh, we've had a biomedical research, we've had a musician, we've had a nonprofit organizer.
and that's what I'm saying. Quite a
Yeah.
variety of backgrounds for sure. And I think that that's interesting. And I think that that does play into how you do your job and what kind of an agent you are, because we all have different personalities and different ways that we go about our business, right?
Mhm.
So my background is in engineering. I have my master's, worked in corporate America for over a decade. My husband always kind of jokes with me, and I don't know really what to say with it. He says, "You're the most non-engineer engineer I've ever met." And everyone I meet is like, "You're so personable." And I'm like, "What are you saying about engineers?" It's just, it helped me rise in corporate America because I could do a lot more of that management track, that project management track. And so I was very successful there. But definitely it is not the kind of career that, warms the heart, so to speak. And when my husband and I decided to have a family, we ended up relocating across the country quite a bit with his career. And so when we finally settled back into Texas, and specifically when I got here to Dallas and my kids were a little older, I said, I'm itching, like I need to do something again. I
Mhm.
really um, just can't. I'm just not satisfied. Just kind of sitting at home. All this energy is got to go somewhere
Right,
else. And I had already been on like PTA, room mom, done all
right,
those things that you
right.
do, but really longing for something a little more fulfilling for me personally. So I was just kind of having a heart to heart with my husband and going through some different things. And we talked about this, and he kind of was like, "I think it'd be fantastic." So my dad, we was an engineer, and we ended up doing investment homes.
Oh,
And so we
wow.
had our own business. And for years, probably since I was 5 years old, I've been answering phones. And, it was back in the day, but I think a lot of it just kind of had that entrepreneurial spirit in my heart, and that um, just client facing without me even knowing it kind of personality. So it didn't make me afraid of talking to people or that sort of
Mhm.
thing. So when I started doing this, I, kind of started building brick by brick here in Dallas because I didn't know anybody. I wasn't from the area, didn't have family here, hadn't worked here. So it's definitely been a little more challenging, but at the same time, I know that every brick I've layered has been a brick of service, a brick of, doing what I need to do for my clients and them referring me. And
Right.
so it's kind of nice because I think no matter what happens, those types of relationships, they do stand the test of time because they're not going to come and go as quickly. It's an investment in people.
Right. And I think that's so important. And I've talked about this with other panel members, is the value in the quality and the integrity that you have in the other panel leaders. And your business is mostly referrals because of what you bring to the table with the whole process. But you're not going to be found on a lot of the websites that promote the best agents and the paid leads. Um, and so with these interviews, I hope we can at least highlight agents like you who aren't in front of the consumer's face, but you're doing an amazing job and you have a ton of clients, and you don't really need to be on those systems to buy ads because you're kind of built your own reputation and business without them,
Mhm.
and that's
And I
important.
find it's more rewarding. I mean, it's definitely, it makes me excited every day to get up and do what I do because I enjoy doing it. I enjoy doing it the way I do it. So yeah, I couldn't ask for anything else.
That's kind of the cool part about having your own business is you're just in control of whatever you put in is what you get back. And it's a little bit of pressure too, like you're the only one to be
Mhm.
accountable if things don't work out or if they do. but as a woman in business, I incredibly value people like you that just set out to establish something and make it with integrity and just hard work. And that success, I think, is the most rewarding versus
Mm-hmm.
some of the other avenues people might take. So with your experience, is there something that you do the most? Is it listing, buying certain types of homes, new construction? I know you have a history in investment properties, but when you're working with your clients, what do you seem to do the most of?
So I would say a good majority of my business, well, it started out, it probably was more listings than buyers. And it's recently shifted probably a little bit more to buyers than listings. It ebbs and flows, but it's probably always about 50-50.
Mhm.
Um, but in terms of the types of folks, I feel like I must just seem diverse because I do get the broad variety of people. So it's not always one thing or another where I can say, oh, I work with mostly veterans or mostly first time home buyers or mostly relo. It's quite a variety of all of them. And so I think I love that I have that breadth because I do feel like my life experience, I have been a corporate relo. I have had to help downsize my parents and move them into that next phase of their life. I have helped family members who've gone through divorce and now are changing their course of life. I've helped people who've lost jobs and are looking for a new home, people who families have outgrown their homes, people who, there's just a variety of things, finally making their first home purchase. So I think that my life experience helps me understand a little bit more some of the things that they're going through, but also help them um, kind of navigate them through those stages or those steps that they need to take to get them where they want to go. And I think some of that is soft and fuzzy. It's not all just here's houses. It's even just sometimes counseling them on things, or just being there for them as a person, right?
Right.
So I don't know if people say, oh, the way to grow your business in real estate is all listings, all listings. But I really do enjoy working with my buyers. I love it. I can't imagine not having buyers I work with and showing homes to them and kind of helping them hone in on what is that home that's going to be perfect for them.
Right. And there's going to be something exciting too for dealing with first time home buyers. That whole experience is new to them and it's exciting and it's, it can be very stressful, but when you find agents like you who value that whole process and can help first time home buyers every time go through the same thing with your knowledge. I think sometimes agents get so used to buyers, they're just treat it like any other old process. And when you're a first time home buyer, there's just so much more comfort and education, that I think needs to be put into it. And if you can find an agent that can give you that, I just think you're so more well off than if you didn't, because you're more prepared and you know what's to
Mm-hmm.
come. And
It's so much more than just the home. It's just, there's so much that you're helping them see and helping them understand. And just, there's just lots of things that come that are just, they're not even thinking about. Like I just helped this one client, they're buying their first home. And I thought this was just so funny. I mean, it just was obvious to me. And I didn't even say it to be like, oh, let me show you how great I can do what I do. It just was a fact I was sharing. And we were looking at different lots they're going to build on. And I still remember this because I was like, wow, it was just funny to me that it didn't even dawn on them. We were looking between two lots and we're standing out there and it was about 5 o'clock on a beautiful Texas evening. And I'm watching the sun and I'm like, this is your lot. And they're like, why? And I said, okay, let's look. This house next to you is kind of tall. It's going to block the west sun. This right here, you're sitting above the homes that will be built behind you. Look at where their windows are on the two sides to you. You will have total privacy in your backyard now. And you won't have that west sun. I was just showing almost, and they were like, I didn't even think about all this, and I just was like, they're like, this is our lot. And then the neighbors next door walked out and they ended up having a ton in common. And so it was just one of those moments where you're like, this is your home.
yeah, that
This is your home.
magical real estate moment. Yeah.
For you. Yeah. You have those moments every now and then that you're just like, wow. And I just remember they were like, thank you. Thank you. And I just think that was like, those are the days that like, you are just like, you go home so excited.
Yeah.
You're like, that was so awesome.
Yeah. And something to point to where your windows are on new construction, people don't point that out enough. And I'm glad you brought it out because when we built, we never, ever thought about how windows line up with your neighbors.
Oh yeah.
Thankfully it worked
I
out
know
for
that
us.
people are doing things in their backyard but I just told her, I said, now you can come out here and if you feel like you want to tan, you tan. If you just want to be out there and you don't want to feel like you're in a glass house where everybody can see you. I said, and then you're going to have, because our Texas heat here is pretty rough.
Mhm.
And if your agent does not advise you how you are facing, shame on that agent. If you choose it, great. But if not, it can be miserable. If you're a person that doesn't want that, you may not ever go out on your back patio.
Right, right. It's there's just so much to think about when you think about layouts, and I never even thought about the sun. I'm looking at snow outside my windows, so
Yes.
I
Yeah.
don't
Well,
think
we
sun's
got
going
our
to be
sun
around for a
here.
while.
You know, our weather here is funny. It's like you could have winter in the morning, spring in the afternoon, you know, summer by late evening. It's so crazy how it can vary. I've never lived anywhere where it is so uh, dynamic.
Right. So other than Dallas, is there anywhere else that you have lived that you would love to go back to or really enjoyed?
So we lived in Virginia.
Hmm.
I absolutely loved the weather changes there. Like, I mean, we had this home that backed up to beautiful, tall trees. And I
Oh.
used to love the leaves falling. Like here, I don't get that same fall, you know, that beautiful color change.
Hmm.
And then it would snow a lot and it would rain a lot. And so you had a lot more um, dynamic, I guess I would say, seasons.
Hmm.
And so I do miss that. I do miss that. And I miss the historicness of that area. So I think everywhere in the country has things that people can love and find that they love about it, right? Uh,
Right.
and when we were living there, my son was only a year and now he's 17. So we want to go back, hopefully after all of this COVID stuff, and take him and my daughter through and just show them the history of that area.
Hmm.
Because we used to enjoy it, but you know, they were so little.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard when they're that little. I'm, I keep reminding myself it's not going to last this long. So even on the bad days, like just enjoy it. But eventually they do become teenagers, and you're like, how did that happen? Like, when did they get so big? And
Blink of an eye is what someone told me, and I was like, no. Well, now that I'm getting closer, I'm like, blink of an eye.
yeah, we're watching videos of my daughter when she was 1, and I'm like, wow, it's just like a totally different, not different person, but it's just a totally different experience.
I
And
just showed my daughter a video of her and a little friend of mine's daughter or son, and they were dancing to a song that was very popular um, about 7 years ago.
mhm.
She's 13 now, and she's like, oh my gosh, mom, please don't show this to any of my friends. I just miss the
Aw.
freeness of a 3-year-old dancing around a room in
Hmm.
total chaos, but in total joy.
Yeah,
If we could only bottle that up always and just remember that.
right. And my son, he could dance all day, and he's got
Mhm.
some interesting dance moves, and I
Well, that's
love
what my
it.
daughter, she was like,
Yeah.
Mom, what was I doing? And I was like, that was your move. That was
Yeah.
your move.
Oh yeah, we're talking like spin moves and like just and I keep telling my husband like I'm going to be so dad or so upset like for the day that someone's like, "Hey, what are you doing? Like that's not dancing." And then he'll never do it again. So just
Well, that's why we have
that
videos.
confidence,
So you can
right?
take some videos so that you can always remember it
And then show it to them when they're a lot
and
older.
embarrass them when you get a chance.
Yes, yes, that's exactly where I was headed. I've got a lot of that. I've got a lot of inventory. Okay, the one thing I wanted to talk about, and I've asked everyone else this, is when finding an agent, you hear ask your friends and family. But especially for the Dallas area, if you're moving there, granted, you can ask an agent near you where you live to refer you, but there's chances they might not know the right person, or they might just refer you to someone in their same brand or the brokerage. So what is best places to search or things to do other than asking friends and family to find a good agent safely?
And so this is for a reload person.
It could be anybody, but I think everyone goes to ask a friend or ask family, but that's not always the case for some people. So if that option's removed, it might be relo, or maybe they just don't really have any great connections to ask, or nobody one that's bought and sold. What would you suggest they do to find the right agent?
So, I mean, I say this with a grain of salt. So I think social media can be great. I think it can be a great way to get like referrals from people. I know I've used it when I don't know a seamstress, or I don't know someone
Mhm.
and I'm trying to find it. And then you find, oh my gosh, I didn't know that that person was right here in this area. Okay, great. So I think it can be a great place to get some names. I think if what I found is a lot of times, let's just say I put it out there and you respond, oh my gosh, I use this person to detail my car. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I know Wendy. And Wendy said this. I'm going to give Wendy a quick call and just ask her. So
Mhm.
what I think it can do is spark conversations like that. maybe where people, I think you have to, again, qualify it a little bit because you don't know these people sometimes.
Mhm.
But I do think, like, I'll use this as an example. In my neighborhood, there's a Facebook page, and there's someone who was asking for a realtor. And I think when you ask that question, it's kind of like you might be inundated with
Yes.
like 60 people and 60 names, which for me,
Yes. Where
I
do you
guess if I
start?
was the buyer, I'm not really even sure how that helped any, because now
Mhm.
yeah, I have 60 names, but I don't
You
really
don't know
know
anything.
anymore. Does
Mhm.
that make sense? That's
Right.
why I said I would almost take it one step more, where when I see someone I know that said something about something, then I'm like, I didn't even know she liked this or did this. I'm going to call her, and then I can have a conversation.
Right.
But what I thought was interesting is this was someone was looking for their mother to relocate to the area. And obviously they had moved here. It was a corporate relo, but they must have not been impressed with that agent. I don't really know, because you would think they would have asked that agent, would
Right.
have been my first thought, and asking for agents. And so a lot of the people in the community where I live, like my sphere of influence, we talk about that as an agent, like people that are kind of your champions and do know who you are and how you work and would gladly and freely share your name. A couple of people started saying things, but what I loved was it wasn't just like my name. Someone was like, oh my gosh, she's fantastic, she's always this, and they said a lot about my character,
Mhm.
which I told my husband, I said I was almost like just gushing because it was so neat to hear people say things about that. I don't think we do that enough as people, to say nice things about each other.
Mhm.
And again, not just a name. So it was funny because when she did reach out to me, I don't know who else, because there were a couple other realtors that people said, I don't know if she interviewed all of them. Really can't. I didn't ask her that. But when
Mhm.
we started talking, she was like, I felt like you were the right fit for my mother. And it's funny, I helped her mother relocate here, buy a home. And I've had several other people in the community that have now reached out to me, like on private messenger. And again, you don't know how people see you, but I think as they start getting to know you, they are watching you as agents. They're
Right.
getting to know your personality. If they see you're involved in things, maybe they have seen you at the church, or they've seen you at the school, or they've seen you in their kids' sports, or they've seen you at the wherever it is. And so I do think that those networks of people, and I say social media, but those are great places to ask those questions and then kind of dig in a little deeper with maybe interviewing them, and just kind of finding out a little bit more about that agent.
Right. And I love that you said that people private message you, because I feel like, you know, even when I'm researching, there's a lot of websites that'll show me like what homes you've sold and where, but there's nowhere on the main sites to be able to just contact you directly, unless it's your personal website. So then they have you fill out these forms, like it's on
Yep.
Zillow, and you have to know that that form isn't just going to you. It's probably going to a multitude of people. And so I love encouraging people, if you want to talk to an agent, go on their personal website or try to find their email, or go on social and send them a direct message, and have those conversations that way, because you're protecting your privacy a little bit more. And you're also not getting stuck and looped into a lot of this lead generation
No,
stuff.
I just had an eight or someone before the holiday reach out to me, and they're thinking of moving their family here, because that's the chapter of life a lot of people I know are in, where their parents are aging and they need to
Right.
get them closer to them. And so they're thinking of moving their parents into this area. And she was just said, hey, what do you know about this community? And I said, yeah, I've sold in there, and there's let's have a conversation. And so she reached out this year and said, yes, we're thinking like in a year. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not like an immediate thing. They've got to sell their home, and it's a process.
Right.
But I mean, to your point, I could be talking to them for the next year ish, helping
Mhm.
educate them on different areas, pros and cons, different things. Because I think, to your point, people today, I think there's lots of information, but I almost think there's too much information.
Yes.
So if you could have somebody synthesize it for you, and you trust their sources or where they're telling you to go, that's huge.
Right.
That's huge, because then you can go and get educated and informed, but you don't feel like you're just searching in this pile of endless information.
Right. And it's funny because I'm working on this article about, dissecting a real estate agent's social media. And it's even there. It's just constant bombardment of information. And sometimes it's just like the automatic content programs. And it's all like the same top 10 things. You should do this and you should do that. And at some point you're like, it's just overload. There's just so much thrown at your face about the process. And it's kind of why I wanted to do these panels, is like, there's so much out there. you don't know where the sources are coming from. You don't know who these people are, and you don't know if there is an underlining mission for writing this and doing this. So if we can just find good people that you can ask a question to, and there's none of the paid leads, there's none of the pressure to use them, and there's no pressure to make a move now. Like if it's just a safe place to ask a question, like we want to be able to provide that for consumers, because there's really not many safe places on the internet that aren't really trying to lure you with information just to get your info and sell it back out to some agent
No,
that
I
you don't know
don't
anything
know.
about.
The statistic changes, and I don't know the number, but I do know that it's like 3 to 4x, in terms of how many leads were sold to really how many homes were sold. It's because I don't do that to grow my business.
Right,
But I know it's completely like 2 to 3x. So those leads are sold multiple times.
right.
I know before you and I were talking, and there was, a thought in my head for a fleeting moment of like, I wonder if I ever bought leads, like what would that look like?
Hmm.
And, I looked into it, and I just actually saw an article recently that was like the average amount of time to respond to an online lead is less than 2 minutes. And I just thought to myself, that's not how I do my business. What if I was in an important call with you? I'm hearing your story. I'm hearing
Hmm.
what it is you're looking for. You're telling me about your mother fell and now you need to move her. And we're having this great conversation, okay? Because that's important to me to hear about why you're reaching out to me and what it is your
Right,
story is all about. And then I get this lead that's I'm supposed to now call them back within 2 minutes, or they're moving on to the next 3 people they've sold it to.
right,
I'm just not interested in that. For me,
right,
that's not how I conduct my business. So I think it might work for some agents, but for me, it's really about that investment in the people. They always say to brand yourself, and I'm kind of coming from a non-sales background. It was like hard for me to brand myself,
yeah,
but I kind of tried to come up with my tagline, which was "Your story begins here," because I truly do feel like I'm the kind of person, and I don't know if every realtor gets this journey and if they have this privilege, but I feel like I truly find the people that have got like, you have no idea. It's the soccer family that you've played with, and then they come to you and they tell you this journey they're on, and it's very personal a
hmm,
lot of times. And I always, share with my clients, hey, this is between you and I. I mean, I
yeah,
don't think there is ethics, but it's not like I'm a doctor-client privilege where it's kind
right,
of,
right.
I'm not
It's not,
sure it's
there's
really
no
the
HIPAA.
same.
Yes.
But I always tell them this is in, because we may know mutual people, and
Right,
I just say this is. I'm always kind of honored and just humbled by what they're able to share with me. But it's an important part of why we're doing what we're doing, but then also how we're going to do what we do. And I just think it's so incredible to be part of this journey for people. So when I kind of had to come up with a tagline, I just said that's it. Because I do feel like it's conversations, it's a story, it's their story. And so
right,
I don't want to rush them, and I don't want
right.
to tell them that it has to be defined in this way, and it's going to be whatever it's going to be for them.
And with that question, other than what we just discussed, so what would be something important to ask when interviewing an agent that you think maybe some consumers don't think about?
Well, I think it goes back to everything we've talked about, the value that they bring. What value do you bring? And I mean, I think that comes from a combination of integrity, life experience, knowledge and competency about the market, about the space that we're in. I think it comes down to even just community involvement. I mean, I don't think we can be an agent, even in today's world, sitting in the four walls of our lives. You have to be out there, you have to be engaged, you have to be talking to other agents, talking to people in the industry about everything, right?
Mhm.
um, I'm not doing it right now because of COVID, but last year there was a gentleman that lived here in my neighborhood that I didn't know did foundation repair. In Texas, we have a lot of foundation issues. Our soil is very um, shifty. So
Mhm.
there's usually a chance that a home after a certain period of time is going to need some work. And anyway, he was doing his own home and he invited me to go over there and take a look. I had never seen that. It was cool to me. And then
Mhm.
he and I made a little video because he let me go into his house before we started all this and show where all the wear was happening and stuff. And I just thought that was so great because I think a lot of times people are, again, should I have someone come take a look? I did see this hairline crack. I don't know. But now they know, like, okay, well, I could have someone come out and I don't have to have them, like, I'm not signing up for anything.
Right.
I'm just going to have them come take a look. And people do that. So I think a lot of it is just um, I don't know, offering the value, offering nuggets of information or things that they can know, not just about real estate, but I feel like anything home. So I just try to come from that place of contribution, um, and service. So I think when you ask them, what value do you bring? It's not really like, well, I've sold so many homes or I have a team of X number of people. Because I think lots of people can say all those things.
Mm-hmm.
That's not like unique. So I think it comes down to the actual individual and them telling you what they're going to do for you and showing you what they're going to do for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the best way to show people is by living it and walking it. And so if they get the opportunity to know you, then, they'll know you before they need you. So that's really my goal is, I usually try to curate like special sessions in my home. Because I think by inviting people into my home, again, pre-COVID,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
it was such a personal way to let them know who I was.
Mm-hmm.
So bringing in people, like I have a colleague friend of mine who's a college planner, and having her do a session on, okay, things to know about when you're getting ready to send your kids to college, ACT, SAT, again, this abundance of information. Or if it's someone that's going to come and talk to you about organizing or
Mm-hmm.
about, and so I try to create different things, that they can come and I'm not asking anything from them. I usually have some snacks. It's a
Mm-hmm.
chance for them to mingle, um, to just come and kind of just have a nice little kind of get away from things. And um, I never realized, but a good over 50% of my business last year came from things that I did like that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I did it because, one, I enjoy it, and it also gives me the ability to keep connected with the people that are extensions of me. When people ask me, who do you know that can decorate my house? Who do you know that can organize my house? Who do you know that can do whatever? I think a good realtor is always keeping engaged in the community and knowing what's going on, but also involved with the community.
Mm-hmm. And knowing the right people to work with. I think that's
Mhm.
such a key part of the whole process is having trusted people that that you've worked with that you would be proud to pass along to your
For
clients.
sure, for sure.
And then the last one was just a misconception you think consumers have about agents or the process.
That is, I mean, it can go a couple of ways. So I've had people who are like, I want to get into real estate because I see that you make 3% and I'm just, sign me up. And
Right.
they're like, so where's my lead? And I'm like, there is no lead. And they said, well, what?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that there is definitely a misconception about the like the compensation and just the cost of being a realtor, which that has nothing to do with really, I guess, anything other than I think what it leads to is, do you know what the value your realtor brings you? The
Mm-hmm.
value. So it's like I say, if everything goes A, B, C, D, then probably anybody could do that transaction because it's pretty just smooth and easy. But if you talk to realtors, that's rarely the case because every transaction is unique
Mm-hmm.
because you're dealing with different people, different set of circumstances, different buyers. Everything is different. So there is no book of whatever. So I think what you're getting the value is the experience of your agent, the expertise of your agent, the ability of your agent to problem solve for you and to create solutions and options for you. Because if everything goes as planned, pretty simple, easy peasy. But when it doesn't, and now you have this new kind of, I'm going to say, dilemma, and there's always little nuances. I mean, even in the most perfect of, let's say I have the seller, great seller, perfect seller I could ever ask for. He talks to me, he's open with sharing his stuff. I'm sharing with him because that's how I value, transparency, but that's a two-way
Mm-hmm.
street.
Right.
And then you get a buyer and the buyer is not clear with their agent. We had this happen and they backed out of the transaction. He and I had already put an offer in another house. We were knee deep. Okay, so now we need to problem solve.
Right.
And so I think that's where people don't understand how much work are you going to put into it. That's where you really pay for the experience of your agent and you pay for them to work hard and to, put on the burners and really, you know, get this resolved. And so I think that that's the misconception. I think people just think we send them some houses and we take them to see a few and we write a contract. And yes, we do those things. But in addition to that, we do all these other things.
Right. And
I
your
mean,
years of experience, I think, plays a lot into that. I when on some of the forums I do follow a real estate agent forum, and there are a lot of new agents that ask these questions. And like, oh, I have, my client said this, like, what does that mean? And I'm thinking like, well, you should know that. Or like, it's, they have to like ask someone else or ask their broker versus someone like you who has already been through those processes, has hit those walls and understands how to navigate it versus having to have someone else come in and help. Like you're the go-to person for everything.
And
And
that's what
you,
I want to be for them. I want to
right.
be, and I want them to like, even if it has nothing to do with me, it's just more like, I mean, I get questions when they move here. Where do you get your hair done? I mean,
Right.
what do you, where do you take your kids for this? Or what do you do for that? Or who could I call for this? I mean, I just want them to think Andrea is the person that knows people. And I
Mm-hmm.
can say, you know what? I had a client who needed her grandfather clock fixed. I mean, I guess she could just look that up, but I love that she turned to me. I love that
Right.
she said, hey, who do you know that might do this? Because again, I think people are just always leery about letting people in their homes. People are leery about not knowing someone. And, I think if you say, I know them, then there's
Mm-hmm.
just an extra vote of confidence.
Right. Absolutely. Was there anything else you think you wanted to share that I might have missed or that we didn't touch upon?
I guess I would just say that I think that people who are buyers right now in today's market might feel a little intimidated, especially first time home buyers. And they may think it's not worth it. Where will I go? What will I do? I don't see how this could ever happen. So therefore, I'm just not going to do this. I'm a big believer in um, you can get what you want, but it requires some planning and some work and some fortitude. And so I encourage people that are having those questions to really start having those dialogues, because I think there are options for them out there. It might require them to perhaps get into a little bit of an uncomfortable space, but you never want to take your clients anywhere that they can't go. But I think that as we're especially, needing our homes to function in different ways, we're outgrowing our homes, our situations are always changing. I don't want people to have this current state of affairs of our market, even just COVID, to keep them from at least asking those questions. So I'm glad that you've created this forum, because I think people do need to always be educated and feel empowered so that they can always kind of live out what it is they want to live out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I want to help them do that. I want our industry to help them do that. Um, but I think one of the first ways you can do that is by giving people knowledge, by helping them diffuse whatever myths and fears they have through the value of knowledge.
Right. That's completely key. And that missing piece, I think, will get you nowhere and will make your process way more difficult when you don't understand and you don't ask. You're just that communication piece and having the right person is just the biggest
Yes,
asset
and,
to the whole
and and
process.
to your point, feeling safe asking a question
Mm-hmm.
without like there being this big hook, because I think um, that's how we learn, that's how we grow, that's how we start growing in our confidence. Is like, okay, well maybe we can do this. All right, and we start stepping a little further in, to the process, and then one day they're like, okay, I'm in here and I'm ready. But I think everyone has their own way and their own mode, and we have to let them kind of get there
Mm-hmm.
how it makes sense for them.